Yeah, well, apparently I'm still having trouble capturing your audio. So this lovely bit of troubleshooting, at least I think. Could you say something now? Hmm. Well, I may need to add another audio capture. All right, could you say something now? Nothing. Crap. Um. All right. So we're just gonna keep on on. All right. Let's see how this works. All right. Could you say something now? Nothing. This is this. There has to be something wrong with the Discord. Yeah, I think it's on the. I mean, and it's not on your end either. I'm guessing it's a changing in the way that they're outputting voice and video. Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. We're still in the process of trying to get Steven's voice to come through, so please do bear with us. Oh, yay. Well, here we go. Looks like we're going to have to edit this a little bit when it winds up becoming time to have it as an actual video online. Okay. Can you hear me? Oh, I can't see or hear you now. It's not on your end, whatever it is. Now I can see you, now I can't hear you. These these audio settings are lovely. See, I decided to just leave the audio on so that our stream audience can hear me hear troubleshooting, so they can know that I'm at least trying to solve something. Hmm. I wonder. If I do this, if that'll help. Nope. It ain't. Alright. So we're going to quit and relaunch Discord again. Alright, now it's time to see if we can get this solved at the next 17 seconds. Yeah, right. Oh, I think I might have heard a noise.
You hear me?
Just don't say anything for a while because I have to turn the volume levels down.
Okay.
Scared the living daylights out of me.
Oh, that was okay. Okay, I was wondering. I was like, wow, that's. Is it that exciting?
No, it's just that loud. Okay, so changing the settings did work.
Hey, hurrah.
Dearest, most beloved audience. Now we merely. So, I have this great idea that I'm not going to worry about not having Steven's picture. I'm just going to go put the thing over here and ask Steven to ad-lib something.
Okay, sure. Sounds good to me.
Okay, and
Hello.
meanwhile, I'll just go and try to find his picture.
Here, we're technical experts here at Culling Sacred Cows, you know.
Mm-hmm. Being forced to use the software we have.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I mean, I'll just be thankful for it, but that doesn't mean it's going to necessarily be the easiest thing.
Right.
Do 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 do.
Yeah, I was literally just thinking about that song. Like, I was like, oh. Every time I'm on the show now, like, the first thing that I think about is that song.
Mana.
Anytime there's downtime, it's gonna bleed over into my real life too. I'm gonna be like, anytime there's downtime, I'm gonna start thinking.
Mana. Do 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 do. Hey, the nice thing is, I can be here screwing up the positioning of your picture and not have them going and seeing it.
Ah, nice. Mistakes are best made, you know.
Uh-huh.
When no one's watching, right?
Yes.
And you see, that's how you were conceived, son. No.
Mommy, Dad says I was a mistake. Boy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering. Got any other thoughts? Because I'm still.
Let me think. I have to think to have thoughts. Let me see.
You do.
I do have to think. Yes. To generate something. Let's see.
I don't know how to think. Nobody ever
Well,
taught
you didn't
me.
graduate preschool, so no one's gonna, you know.
No one
No
ever
one's gonna
taught me
get.
to think.
No, yeah, no one's ever gonna. No one will ever expect that of you. It's okay.
Good. Mommy, no one ever taught me to think. Hello, Mrs. Wife. How do you like being married to somebody who didn't get... I'm getting ornery looks from her. Ha!
Success.
What? Are you saying that I have a cucumber and 2 red beets?
Is that an emoji reference?
I'm pretty sure.
Let's see.
Ah. Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Wife, and I guess we'll be thanking our friends. Our friends actually just dropped by and brought us a big bag of cucumbers and a big bag of red beets. Things like value-added tax and sanitary pads and... psychological manipulation. Employed by the media. I'm assuming you read Bernays' propaganda then, Mr. Sanderson. But yeah, it's so GST. GST is essentially value-added tax. And the question is, why did it take so long for the government to exempt sanitary napkins? That's period pads for those of you that don't know what sanitary napkins are, from value-added tax. So apparently, Palkesh Asawa says that it took so long because they were trying to explain to the people how stupid it would be to lower the taxes on period patties. That's not what he said. He said sanitary napkins, but I'm calling them period patties.
That doesn't sound like my favorite type of hamburger.
No, not my favorite type of hamburger either. However, I like my meat rare. Completely rare and dripping blood. However, since the people did not understand, and since the country cares more about optics, they gave into the pressure and reduced the tax rate. So optics. So does this have to do with like optometry or?
Yeah, probably.
Would you be able to turn your Would you be able to turn your camera from the top a little counterclockwise? A little more.
Like this?
Yeah, a little more. A little more. Now a little up. That was a little too much. Perfect. Thank you.
Alrighty.
Awesome. Now you're centered. I'm sorry, but that's the best I can do with regard to my own snipping of the frame.
Oh, good.
So yeah, we got period patties. So he said, however, since the people did not understand, and since the country cares more about optics, they gave in to the pressure and reduced the tax rate. But this move might backfire. So apparently, the selling of I don't know, eyeglasses or something has to do with the price of, or with the tax levied on period pads. But he claims this move might backfire. I don't even know what GST stands for. I just know it's a value-added tax equivalent. I think it's like goods and service tax or something. It's goods and service tax. Goods and services tax. I believe that the GST on period patties should not have been exempted. Here's why. 1. A lot of inputs and other services that are used for making the period pads are chargeable to GST, including plastic, covering papers, cloth items, polypropylene, cotton, etc. these things are not being exempted from GST. Therefore, manufacturers of period patties will have to buy all such materials after paying the GST on them. However, since the GST on sanitary pads is now exempt, this is point 2, it means that this input tax will now become a part of their cost, and as such cannot be utilized for payment of any outward tax, since there is no outward tax. As a result of this, the cost of manufacturing period patties will increase. So basically the whole idea is that if you exempt the thing from value-added tax, I put the link into the chat because it's horrible. So basically the rationale goes, if you go and exempt something from value-added tax but still make the people go and pay value-added tax, the price is going to go up in proportion to how much you decrease the taxes, because there's still a tax burden on the people producing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the cost of but he's saying that the input tax will become a part of the cost and cannot be utilized for payment of any outward tax. Okay, so he's saying the cost of manufacturing will increase. Well, only because you're moving, you're increasing one number and decreasing another. So that's, but the difficulty is that the inputs are all chargeable to various GST rates. So some of them are 18%, and some of them are 5 or 10. The value-added tax rate scheme is so convoluted that it actually does increase the price, because the different amounts of tax that are charged in different levels of the scheme render it such. So then if you're not allowed to collect the tax at the beginning, or rather consider part of the value-added tax you already paid on other levels as part of it, it just completely goes to crap.
Mm-hmm.
So basically he calculates that getting rid of what amounts to a 10% tax could cause the average cost of manufacturing to increase anywhere between 8 and 12%, depending on the nature of the product. So it could be good, or it could be worse, or it could be on average. But basically, on average, the costs will balance out.
Mm-hmm.
However, so say the basic customs duty on sanitary pads, so customs tax, is 10%. So it means that you see more Chinese imports rather than manufacturing the patties in India, because you have that range of 8 to 12%. Getting imports from China might be cheaper than manufacturing in India. And even if the cost is less than the imports, manufacturers may want to maintain import parity and still sell sanitary pads at a maximum possible price. Okay, they're going to sell things at maximum possible price anyway, but that's... It's like, okay. In short, the sanitary pads that were chargeable to GST at 12% will now be available at 10%, at best. If the cost is below that, then the manufacturers might want to match the price to import price. And if the cost is above that, people will prefer the imports anyway. So that's why it would have been better to keep sanitary pads at 5% value-added tax rather than completely exempting it. Doing so would have made sure that imports are not the price-determining factor, and the imports would still be taxed at 10% plus the 5% is 15%, as opposed to the 10% now. In short, this was a move not at all properly calculated and might result in increasing imports or only seeing a marginal reduction in the price of sanitary pads. So he discusses this in a detail. He has a blog post on the price of period patties, just so that you can know, and it's linked there in the answer. You can refer to it if you like.
It's called Inquisitive Readers. It's on inquisitivereaders.com.
Yeah. That's not so. I can only see the top half of your head now.
Oh. I was thinking.
Yeah, you were thinking, but you were probably also thinking, but this is nuts. So, why in the world would that? Okay, so basically they're saying you're throwing a monkey wrench into an already convoluted taxation system. Okay, so I'm going to find an article here for you. It's a very, very simple one.
Okay.
It's not even an article, it's just a definition. It's Say's law. Law. Or Say's formulation, however you want it. Say's law of markets, Investopedia. Here we go. It is a controversial economic theory. The only people that disagree with it are socialists. So, it is a controversial theory.
Global warming's controversial.
There's all sorts of things that are controversial. Anyhow, I'm going to put this definition here into the chat box and let you take a look. Meaning you, the viewer. Or you, Stephen. Say's law of market. Jean-Baptiste Say basically says that production is the source of demand. It's not consumption, it's production. Basically, the Say's law says that I don't have any purchasing power unless I make something of value first. Consumption doesn't drive the market because I can't consume unless I have first produced. Unless, of course, I steal. I mean, that's the only other way. You can have something to spend without actually producing anything. So, if India winds up importing more period patties, well, that means that they're going to just need to produce more of something else.
I see. So this is why. So what makes it controversial?
It's controversial because some people believe that consumption is what drives economic growth.
Yeah, I see. Okay, that's the other side of the coin.
People actually think that. People think that consumption is what starts it, as opposed to production. And they're basically saying, well, people aren't going to produce if people aren't going to consume. Which is true. But then that's what capitalism's about. You take a risk, okay? I'm going to produce period patties on the hopes that, women don't stop getting their periods sometime in between now and the end of the world, and I'll get a share of the market. Oh, and guess what? My period patties are softer, more absorbent, and cost 20% less.
Yeah, there you go. Well, yeah, I can get behind Say's law. Makes sense.
I can too. It's classical economic theory. It's just basic herder. We can't buy anything unless we produce something in order to have something to trade for it.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, makes sense. So
this guy is completely clueless. That's what that means. This guy is clueless.
Well, I'm not extremely surprised. Let's see. GST consultant. That's in his
Yeah. So he consults on matters of goods and service taxes.
I see.
So he's a central planner. He's a central planner.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, he don't know about them economic things. Either that, or he's busy. He's just up to his eyeballs in it, and is
right.
And he's forced. I mean, that's the situation when you have government controlling much of the economy.
You got a whole bunch of upvotes.
Yeah, 2,500 upvotes and
25,000 views.
25, yeah. Okay, so that just means all the people who in India who are curious about period patties and the tax on period patties.
That's a really high upvote to view ratio, isn't it?
Well, yeah, 10%. I mean, well, just think, but it's a topic of concern, right? So there are guys that go to the store and buy period pads for their girlfriends or wives or whatever, and then there are girls that go to the store and buy period pads. It's a part of life that nobody really talks too much about, but then they get up in arms when the price of period pads goes up.
Right.
Right? That's just like, I don't know, for example, let's say here in Finland, if you're pushing a stroller with a baby in it, you get on a bus for free. So every single time that people try to suggest, oh, well, let's charge mothers or fathers who are pushing a stroller, the fee for a ticket, or the fee for a ticket plus the fee for a ticket for a child or whatever, everyone gets up and says, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't charge me for... and that's a bus ticket. Stupid.
Right.
Ugh.
Yeah. It just seems silly.
Yeah. So that's how, that is the level that central planning goes and screws things up, that you actually wind up getting a serious conversation about the taxation on period pads, as opposed to just saying, hey, by the way, if we have a government, why not just levy a flat tax, a flat percent tax, just or just don't have tax. A voluntary tax, that's another, that's a good one. But but even so, like 11% sales tax on everything.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Sounds about right to me.
And then you could say, okay, 11%. And the nice thing about sales tax is, the final consumer pays it, and then everything in the supply chain up to the point of the consumer is tax exempt on sales tax, right? So basically, sales tax is a tax on consumption. But then there are other ways of doing it, right? Which is a flat tax on everybody. It's like everybody will assume uses the roads and the government services and so on about the same, or at least they have the same access to it. Therefore, everyone should pay the same in taxes.
Right.
Well, people don't think that's very fair, because then that would mean that the poor pay disproportionately more taxes. If everyone has to pay, say, $5,000 of taxes every year, then the person who makes a billion still pays the $5,000. The person that makes $10,000 pays $5,000.
And that makes, yeah.
Interesting. So I would say that, definitely not a progressive tax, because I think that's
it's not a flat rate. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
At least start with having a flat rate and have it be a consumption-based tax, and then you can eliminate all the other taxes, simplify the code, let the market adjust, i.e., let the market do what the market's going to do, which is get considerably better, and then you can go and make the next iteration to make things even better from that point on. But stop juggling 18% tax rates and 24% tax rates and 26% tax rates and 5% and 10% tax rates to try to figure out the most economical way of making a period patty. Just don't do that.
I'm still laughing at just period patty. I'm just thinking of some sort of really failed McDonald's menu item. They're like, wow, this really didn't go by well. I wonder why.
I got my period patty stuck between my buns.
Like, oh my god. Oh my god. Yeah, but no, I think just a flat rate seems fine, at least on the surface. Like, just everyone gets taxed the same rate on consumption. Progressive taxes are like, I feel like there's like some sort of like kind of like not ethical sort of. I feel like there's some sort of philosophical debate that could go down. That could happen about progressive taxes. So,
oh yeah.
So it's really, I think that's like a place that's gonna be hard. And then
say again, I lost. I can't hear you.
Oh, so I think that.
Oh boy, the stream can hear you, but I can't.
Oh, can you hear me at all now? Still? Oh, yeah, okay.
Oh, crud.
Can you hear me now?
Alright, let's see if I can listen to something else.
In the aftermath of being arrested at a fitness club.
Ah, lovely.
Can you
Alright,
hear
I
me?
just prevented from hearing you. Like my computer audio took a dump.
Let me see.
Alright, I can hear you now. Can you say something, please? Oh, great. Now I can hear you and they can't. Hang tight. Here we go. Let's try this. Okay. Could you say something again? Nothing. Alright, so we're... Could you say something now? I think that you now have noise. Could you say something else, please? Okay, good. So now we can talk about taxes, or philosophy, or the idea of a progressive taxation system. So if we think, okay, progressive income tax, what happens if we go and extend that to saying progressive sales tax? Okay, so let's say no income tax, progressive sales tax. More expensive things we tax at higher rates. Yeah, that's yes. That it, the higher the price of the item. Yeah, I'm saying let's go, and in order to eliminate certain aspects of this discussion that are actually relevant, but to be able to focus on other relevant points, let's think about what happens if we go and take it in a totally new context. Explore this as a new construct, progressive sales tax. So let's say if I want to buy a $100,000 car, I will pay 30% tax, but if I want to buy a $50,000 car, I will pay 15%. Something like that. So I'll be paying $7,500 tax on a $50,000 car, and I'll be paying $30,000 tax on a $100,000 car. Like, well, so yeah, I'm richer, right? I can afford something more expensive, so why shouldn't I be taxed more? I'm more ostentatious in my consumption. I mean, it's similar logic, but it's different. The progressive income tax is basically, I want the billionaire to feel the same pain as the pauper. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you have the billionaire eating ramen noodles and drinking water, right? Yeah, he has one of two McDonald's meals, depending on in the morning, depending on whether his portfolio went up or down the previous day. Uh, I mean, but he has a high net worth, but his income isn't all that much. I think he gets paid a couple $100,000 a year, compared to having a net worth of nearly $100 billion. But he actually pays himself a couple $100,000 a year. That's it. And then if he needs to go places or do business or whatever, it's a business expense. So ultimately, his net worth, the lion's share of his income, is essentially due to his ownership in Berkshire Hathaway, and so corporate tax rates and their workarounds are actually what impacts his net worth, not taxes on 200,000. And of course, he's not going to get paid more than 200,000 because he's not stupid. If he were, I mean, there is progressive income tax up to was about 260,000 nowadays. That you start hitting higher tax rates after that. So why would he go and throw away his net worth when he can go and just conduct business and write things off as business expenses and have increase his own personal taxes? That's dumb. And the only reason you would do that is if you have money to burn and you want to go and buy a house for yourself, and then you go pay yourself $10 million, pay half of it in tax, and buy your $5 million house. Well, I mean, well, all right. So travel, travel and food. So you go to different places in the world to check on your investments. You drive a Bentley to get to your to. I don't know. All right, let's just say I own. And I don't, but let's say I own a rental property in Estonia. I could drive from my place here in a Bentley to check out my rental property in Estonia. And okay, my Bentley's a business expense then. My 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 gasoline is a business expense. My lodging is a business expense. Any meals that I eat while going and checking on that rental property is a business expense. I can go and write all these different things off as business expenses and wind up not paying taxes on the money that I would collect from said rental property that would be paying for these things. Yeah. All the rules have always been slanted towards people that are in business, and slanted against people who take a salary. That's basically the way that the rules work nowadays. Because the people who are in business are the people that can pay the politicians. It all has to do with campaign contributions. That's basically all it is. You think he who pays the piper calls the tune, right? So why is there progressive income tax? It's so that rich people can go and make poor people feel like they're going to be suffering so that they don't go and riot. And then rich people go and say, ha ha ha, screw you, I'm actually not paying taxes, except for they kind of hide it, due to the fact that they have other structures in place for tax avoidance. Well, in that case, that means he just didn't play by the rules correctly. Yeah. Oh yeah. But that sort of a thing works. And, okay, this does two other things. And this has to do with also who pays the piper calls the tune. Right? So, if there is an asinine tax code, if it's asininely stupid, just you can write this off, but you can't write that off. You can do this, but you can't do that. Boom, 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 boom. Brrr, thousands and thousands of pages, right? First off, that generates employment for tax lawyers. And secondly, even more importantly, the people that can afford to pay tax lawyers, the people who paying a tax lawyer is a drop in the bucket, can go and constantly come up with more and more convoluted laws. Because, you know, TurboTax exists, right? So you can basically program the laws and say, okay, do this, and you can file your taxes. But if you want to get all the deductions for a business, you can't do that, right? You need to hire an attorney because he needs to be on top of all the novelty, all the new things. So that's a barrier to entry. If I start in the same business field as some other company, and that company has been established, that company is very big, they can navigate the tax code better than I can because they have a legal department for that very purpose. I can't afford to pay that same legal department. Therefore, they've gone and put a barrier to my entering. I mean, it's soft. Nobody's going to call it a barrier to entry, but that is crony capitalism. That is people coming up with rules in order to cement their own income security. It's a barrier to entry, and people go and think, oh, well, this is actually killing the rich. No, it's not. It's preventing people from getting there in the first place. It's ingenious. You go and make everyone feel one way. Oh, the rich people, they're getting theirs. When it's really like, haha, the rich people go around with extended middle fingers thinking, ha, I've already made it. And no one can compete with me because of all of the rules that I can, the rules of my own making that I can circumvent because I can afford to pay a legal team a few million a year. Whereas that's more than these small companies will start out making in a year. It's a raw deal. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, impression management is power, and on the same vein, it takes power to be able to engage in the right kind of impression management. It's all a power game in the end, and that is why I'm classically liberal. I don't think that the government should be allowed to play around with the markets like it does, because ultimately it is complicit in generating monopolies where they need not necessarily exist. Even though you can't call it a monopoly because it's not an explicitly stated law. It's one of those things that you just go, look at the fruit of the tree. The fruit is what you can call it, but then you wind up having all the people with plausible deniability saying, oh, that's not what we're doing, we're just taking advantage of the rules. Yeah, you are, Useless turd. Of course you and you're making and you have a say in what these rules are. Or at least the politicians that you back do. It's like the financial system self-regulating, right? Who regulates who regulates financial institutions? Financiers do. Oh boy, guess how hard it is to get into finance by actually starting a new company in that sense, like starting a bank. You know how asininely difficult that is? It's nuts, and it's because of the regulation. Banks can afford to pay the regulators, and if you're too big to fail, you can get the taxpayers to go and bail you out too. Wow. I really have an incentive to serve my customer. I really have an incentive to make responsible investment decisions if I'm an investment bank. Oh boy, I can literally just sit here and play with other people's money, and then when I make bad decisions, have other people's money bail me out. Yeah, it is, and that's the reason the 2008 financial crisis existed. It's cancer.
System.
Can you hear Steven now? Steven now. Oh, crud.
Did it do it again?
Alright, can you hear Steven now? Can you hear me? Can you hear Steven? Hopefully we got this.
Can you hear me, Matt?
Yeah, I've always been able... Well, not always. This is very strange. This is very strange, indeed.
Oh,
I've never had these kinds of audio. I've never had these kinds of audio problems before.
They said yes, they can hear.
Oh, good. You haven't been able to hear Steven for a long time. Oh, boy.
It's all right. I didn't say anything bad. I don't think I said anything.
I mean, yeah, but you did. Well, the nice thing is people can ascertain what it is that you've said.
True. There is two sides to the conversation.
See, the thing is, I really wish I had timestamps in the chat, because I thought that I couldn't hear Steven was referring to when I couldn't hear you when I was messing with the things and thought I had fixed the problem, but I didn't.
Right, yeah.
It's like, oops.
Yeah, I thought it was from them then too.
It's like I go and I see, oh yeah, the monitor's going. Well, yeah, the monitor may be going, but if the thing that's going into the monitor isn't going into the stream, yeah.
There you go.
But I don't have the time to write my own software for this.
Yeah, no.
I don't have the time. I don't have the time.
That would be like ridiculous to expect. So.
Okay. So anyhow, we got all this fun stuff squared away. So would you care, Steven, to give a kind of a synopsis of where we've gotten so far, just for anybody who might be tuning in or what have you?
All right, sure. So essentially, we shat on some guys for Quora answer about taxes, and from there we moved on essentially just talking about taxes in general, taxes in general, and we talked about like progressive taxes in specific and like types of progressive taxes and sort of what's interesting about those, and then we talked about sort of impression management, basically like if you look like you're doing, if you look like what you're doing is something you to be, it doesn't matter if you're actually doing it or you can get away with it as long as as long as you're appealing to people's emotion and their etc. You can sort of do what you want. And it'll, as long as you, when they think of you in their head as you come up with some kind of positive, like, oh yeah, I like that person. That's nice. Like, it's fine. It doesn't matter what actually happens.
If you look at what Aristotle says, if people view you as a good person, if people view you, okay, this person is a good person, they will trust you. Doesn't matter if you are good. If they view you as good, they will trust you. That's actually rule number 1 that Aristotle gives with regard to impression management and actually getting what you want.
Right. No. Yeah, that's. But
Or as
it's
Shakespeare says, all the world's a stage.
That's also good. Oh, that's stage. Shakespeare would be an interesting person to meet, I think.
I think he had some perspective. I think he had a great deal of perspective.
Yeah, for real. So what was his upbringing like? What do you know anything about that? I know that's a weird tangent, but
No, I don't know too much about him except for I read his plays. That's about the extent of it. I appreciate him for the value of the literature he brought in. I think it's interesting that so many people say, well, Shakespeare isn't all that clever. All he's doing is saying things that we've heard so many times. Well, he was the dude that brought them into our vernacular. He was the one that initiated these things that have just become a part of commonplace English for centuries.
He started it, yeah. I've heard that before.
Yeah,
I'm sick of hearing about Newton and all the stuff he did. Like, everyone knows the laws of motion. Like, we all know it. We don't need to hear about it. Like, it's like there's a reason.
He came up with it. Ridiculous.
Yeah, no. Yeah, Shakespeare, exactly. He came up with a lot of, like, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, certain, like, kind of literary structures that are used, he, like, seems like one of the first people to do, like, certain things. Like, I feel like his stories are repeated a lot in, like, other little. Just,
of course they are.
As far as, like, oh, well, this is story basically arc. Just Romeo.
He mastered story arc.
It's like this is just this is just Romeo and Juliet but with mice or something like that. That was and I'm literally not making a joke. I'm literally not making a joke and, like, actually saying, like, referencing some movie that is like Romeo and Juliet with mice. There might be one, but, like, literally, like, I feel like that's the structures that he sort of, pioneered. As you said, story arc. He just mastered it.
But good storytellers have existed before him. It's just that his stuff lasted.
Right.
He had the medium to make it last.
Yeah.
Of course, you wind up having the Iliad and the Odyssey. They still exist. You wound up having the works of Herodotus and Thucydides and so on. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that lasted from antiquity. But literature and poetry and plays, that sort of a thing, art, it gives a good reflection into what humanity expects.
Yeah. That's why that reminds me of one of Caleb Beer's answers. It's like, well, what if you want to understand people, what should you do? He said, read good fiction.
Read popular fiction. Read what it is that gets people's imaginations going. And then, if you want to be popular, emulate the protagonist.
There you go.
Emulate the protagonist.
The protagonist. Sounds like science now. Let's see. No.
Have you seen the Star Wars series?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you seen Mr. Plinkett?
Mr. Plinkett. That name seems oddly familiar, but I have no idea what Mr. Plinkett.
Star Wars Episode 1 is the worst movie ever. How did it go? Like, something about, it's even worse than my son. But my son went and hanged himself in the bathroom at a gas station. The problem with the Star Wars series is, unlike my son, it's going to be around forever.
God. Mr. Blanket sounds kind of... Oh my God.
Then he does a Star Trek analysis. Star Trek. And the entire theme of the Star Trek thing is how he didn't kill his wife.
Okay, so is he like a YouTuber?
Red Letter Media. I think that they don't do too much on YouTube anymore. They do it like in private Patreon things, but he got started. Oh crap, now I can't hear.
Alright.
Alright. Now I couldn't hear you there for a while, but could you please start again?
Yeah, so one thing what I was basically talking about, the most, to me, like, okay, because as you said, you were talking about good storytellers. Basically, they, persist throughout time. And, I was thinking about what sorts of things can people lean on and not necessarily be the greatest storyteller, but the structure of this sort of story would sort of make up for that. Like, so by having themes that people like, right, you can like sort of get by with like pretty like mediocre writing and stuff like that, and just not being good.
Fill in the blank at the story arc.
Like, well, I was thinking of rags to riches is like the most common thing I've ever, like, I see that, and I have seen that everywhere, and everyone like eats it up. People love rags to riches stories. Like, it feels like that's like so common. And to me, from what I've seen, it feels like I could be very wrong since I'm not an avid reader, but it feels like it's been like it is like the most common theme I see across across genres or whatever.
The rags to riches story arc, yes.
Yes, exactly. And I was just thinking it's because it makes people feel like good about themselves, even and it makes them feel powerful and stuff. I feel like even if you're not,
of course, I could be this protagonist. I could do this too.
Does he say it like that? Does he say protagonist?
He does.
Oh, that's really funny.
He's awesome. It is blatantly obvious. It's blatantly obvious that the guy who puts this together really knows what he's talking about. But, well, maybe after the stream, I don't know if I dare even link it in the description. No, I will. I will link the one for Star Wars Episode 1, and then you can go find the rest of it. It is... It's horrible. I mean, but it's incredibly good. The Phantom Menace Review, Part 1 of 7.
It's a good skill to have.
Vocal
At least,
I only learned the inappropriate ones.
I don't know. It's a really good entertainment.
Yes, I'm just a guy that goes around with my free candy van. I offer free candy to the children. I don't know why the mothers grab their hands and make them go away. I just want to give them candy. I hear that's a way to make friends.
They make the kids go away. I hate parents.
But I love little boys. Little girls.
Imitation is such a funny, it's got a lot of like innate humor value to it.
Well, yeah, there's a stereotype in someone's head, and then when you go and you take one aspect of it, you just nail it. There's also this one.
the answer, it reminds me of a core answer of mine to you, where it's like, what's the, what's a good joke or something? It's like, what's a good inappropriate joke? I'm outsourcing my marriage. What's a good?
Oh, that was awesome. That was great.
Like the relatability factor thing.
Oh, that was so perfect. I'm gonna actually look it up and put it in the chat. Actually, I think
good
you can.
impression. Yeah, sure, I can do that.
Yeah. I'm eating up bandwidth like crazy, so.
Yeah, let me do that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I think you could post links in chat.
Let's see.
And if you can't, then just send it to me on WhatsApp, and I'll put it in the chat. But I can't go and search for too much of anything. For some reason, I actually think it's a bandwidth issue. I think that something's hogging the bandwidth.
Yeah, so I talk about I mentioned in this answer the relatability factor. And for certain things, just being accurate is enough to be relatable. Like as weird as this sounds, and this might feel like a weird context to use this idea in, but like saying like, oh, 2 + 2 is 4. Like technically that's relatable to people because they know it as correct. Like, oh yeah, true. So when someone says things that are correct, they seem correct. You're whatever. I'm not going to go into the psychological rabbit hole that is that. But essentially, like you're like just by hitting like that, like just by being correct in your imitations and being like, they're like, holy shit, it is like that person. It just it's like everyone it's that, oh yeah, like that's relatable. Like it's that feeling like, yeah, they hit it. They like our experiences, our experiences align here. Like, it's like validating. It's weird, like psychologically, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
That sort of like, and you hit that with a good imitation. You can just hit that, so you can make people just die.
And that's actually why small talk works too.
Right. No. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, yeah, small talk is like, oh yeah, so it is sort of that, oh yeah, so we are,
but it's a level more. Like anyone can do small talk. You state the obvious, and you gauge the other person's reaction to see if they're a threat or not. That's kind of the
Sam, it's like the most menacing take on small talk. You state the obvious and then you ascertain threat levels. It's like, God, you must be fun at parties, literally.
If you state these things, if you're like, okay, I'm going to engage in small talk with you, how do people react? One of two ways.
Well, they'll laugh, maybe.
They either go and think you're a complete and total freak and a weirdo and they avoid you, which means you shouldn't have. I mean, if you're like me, that means you didn't want to spend time with them anyway, so you scare them away. Or they react like you do, and I'm like, okay, good. I'll get along with this dude. Which is, I accomplish what small talk is supposed to accomplish.
I know. I was laughing about how, like, meta it was.
Yes!
In multiple ways. Because it's like... and then, because, like, you state the obvious. It's funny, because you stated that like it was obvious, which, to some people maybe it's like, to me it's obvious once I hear it, but I wouldn't have thought like, okay, like I probably wouldn't have just summarized it off like I would have had to think to, like, I'd probably have to do a little NETI exploration to be like, okay, it's literally just saying how much of a threat they already is. But once you said it like that, I was like, oh yeah, that is awesome. So like it literally, like, that was just simply small talk in essence. Yeah. It's really good.
Well, you have to figure out, because ultimately everything that we say and do, all of our heuristics, all of these other things, exist for the purpose of us propagating our genetic material.
Yeah, it's like you can boil down everything into that.
It's like, why do people manipulate? Well, it's so that I can go and convince other people to not propagate their...
Like, it's so ingrained. Like, just the reproductive thing. Is so ingrained into just into us as species, that things that we think would decrease that. Like any sort of thing that decreases that feels bad. Anything that increases that feels good. And just any of these like incremental status change, it's like our intuition just picks up on like any sort of status. Like the status monkey is really perceptive and really alert, like a lot, like all times.
Oh yeah. So I mean, that's why we have serotonin. That is why we have serotonin. And the reason we have dopamine is so that we don't kill ourselves by not going out and hunting or gathering.
Right. Well, that's our, that's today's lesson on on neurotransmitters.
Yeah,
and in just life in
basic
general.
biology and how it fits into our paradigm. It's easy.
Yeah.
If you know the biology and think, okay, well, everything exists for a reason. What is that reason? Because it would have been gotten rid of, or at least it would be on its way out if it weren't there for a reason.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, but but small talk's one of those things though that when you do like I can see why certain people are like, what the hell is going on with this? Like I hate this.
Well, they're the intuitive ones. They're the perceptive ones. They're the ones that don't need it to accomplish that role.
Right.
They're the ones that can already feel safe in an environment. It's either powerful people or people that are intuitive, or even or you could say powerful people could conceivably use it in order to make other people feel good about themselves. Manipulators, psychopaths, politicians. All of those people need to know how to use the skills.
Just name the same person 3 times. I don't know what you're talking about. All of those people. All of that person.
Yeah.
Of course.
And it's hijacking the machinery for your own personal motivations. I mean, that's the reason that psychopaths aren't selected against.
Right.
Completely. I mean,
yeah.
It's the reason that, and it's also the reason that all sorts of different people exist in certain proportions within a population. That kind of varies depending upon the nature of the population and the nature of the environment surrounding them.
Yeah, that reminds me of Thomas West's answer. Like his pinned answer, the really good one.
Yeah, well, it's entirely contingent upon evolutionary biology. Yeah,
and sort of like the societal expectations, kind of, and expectations and requirements, sort of, dictating which types of people show up.
Oh yeah.
And so when he was like, well, when there's a time of war, more psychopaths are born. When there's a time of this, more empaths are born, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah.
And he's citing things that are fact. They are recognized as fact, but they're just unpopular.
Yeah.
And he also dares cite them, which is rather rare. I mean, I suppose he doesn't have too much to lose by citing them, so why not?
Right. Yeah.
But before that, you were talking about mimicking, and you were talking about being able to go and get to the heart of a matter. Like, I don't know if you were going to talk about parodying or anything of that nature, but just basically mimicking, going and being able to...
I wanted to talk more about that stuff. Mimicking, like... It's something, like, it's very, very... Like, this is another deep, like, sort of intuition that I think people just have. Like, when you mimic people... like, mimicry just has so much power. Like, it really just has so much power. Like, when I think of it in literature, and I think of it, say some villain has the ability to mimic. Like, I've seen this, like, in, like, not only, like, literature, but, like native populations, etc., would have, like, folklore, etc., that deals with some sort of character, maybe a villain who can mimic people. And, like, mimicry, like, has always been, like, when I see it within like sort of, I'm just looking at literature as sort of like a reflection of kind of what you know, how humans think about themselves, but essentially, like I see it as a real like a powerful tool, like, and it's treated as such. Like, if you think in literature, villains that can mimic people are like the ones that can kind of manipulate and be like, oh, well, you know, like, you know, the weird creature that can mimic human cries perfectly or something weird like that. It's because like it takes advantage of our trust. Like, we're like, oh, okay, let's go help that person that I care for in need, but it's actually some, you know, bad thing. In the same vein, like, people mirror, like, there's like, you know, there's the psychological concept of like mirroring. So like, if you like someone, you'll like, you know, you'll basically mirror their body language, and it like makes both people feel like, like when you copy someone's body language, you know. So like, I might, when Matt starts doing this, I'm like subconsciously it's like just comforting on both sides or something. Like, there's something comforting about being like in this. There's something, I guess, deeply comforting about being like as a part of a group. I mean, it's literally just being human. So, as being a part of a group and being relatable and all these things that we've touched on, like, it's just really deeply satisfying, I guess, for humans, because it's like evolutionarily beneficial for us to want to be in a group. So like, so it goes back down to sex, but anyway, and pretty much just goes back to sex. Essentially, but mirroring, like mimicking is just such a powerful like thing. Like, I mean, when you mimic other people, like, when you mimic someone else in a group, like, people will like find comedic value of it, right, from it, and be more drawn to you. Like, when you mimic someone, when you're, you know, one-on-one with them, like, as far as mirroring goes, they're going to be more likely to like listen to what you say, and like, they're just going to be more receptive to you as a person in general. When it's just like a really, really powerful tool. And like, it has many interesting like sort of psychological implications that I haven't actually delved. Like, I haven't really thought about this too much. But yeah, it's a really interesting theme, and just something that I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, the psychological implications.
Yes. Wait, say that again. You said something about psychological implications.
I said, yeah, the psychological implications.
Yes. Okay. That's what I thought you said, so I agreed. But yeah.
Of course, exactly. You agreed, because I was mirroring your own words back to you.
Yeah, I better agree with that, or I'm going to be really dissonant, huh?
Yeah, really dissonant.
But yeah, I'd be super dissonant. It's like, no, I disagree. It's like, what, Stephen? No, either that, or I'm just being myself and obstinate. No, but yeah, I'm trying to like, and you'll see it, like, politicians or just people in the public sphere, like, everyone, like, when I say everyone, obviously, I can qualify. I'm going to qualify and I'm not meaning to speak in hyperbole, but it's just a linguistic, you know, quirk. But anyway, like, it seems like everyone in like politics and stuff, like, they try to. I think a good place to look at this is when there's a campaign, right, and they're campaigning and they're trying to whatever, be the mayor, the president, the governor, etc. And essentially, you know, they really want to get the people's attention. They want people to get behind them. They want people to trust them, vote for them, etc. And so they do it, like, they just try to be super relatable. And there's this really funny meme that arose from this, and it was Ted Cruz, and oh my god.
Well, while you're looking at the Ted Cruz meme, I will tell a story that happened to my dad. He somehow decided at one point, I think it was during the 2012 presidential election. No. When was it? Yeah, I think it was the 2012 presidential elections. No, was it all the way back in 08? Yeah, I think it. I think it was the one with McCain. Anyhow, yeah, it was McCain and Palin versus Obama Biden. So anyhow, so my dad signed up to go to this focus group that whose topic was politics, and then instead of like acting like a normal person, he acted like my dad, which which means that like they would go and they would play these clips of both politicians saying their views on certain issues, and for the most part they were saying almost exactly the same thing, picking different words, but it was obvious that the people who were slanted one way or slanted the other way were going to tend to agree with one more than the other, even if they did say the same thing. But then when it came my dad's turn to speak, he said, well, they both seem to be saying the same thing, so my opinion of both of them is that they probably both read the same opinion poll. And then everyone else kind of looked up, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it really does seem to be that way. It's like, duh, of course. It's a popularity contest. What do you think it's gonna be?
Exactly, and that's so. Here's the thing: it's like, and I don't know. I don't think it's actually. I don't know if it's true or not what he said, but it's like. So here he is. So here Ted Cruz is in Texas. So oh my god. So the U.S. Senate candidate for Texas. And he said, "This is so hilarious. There's like millions of memes that could spawn just from this whole thing."
Mm-hmm.
So it's Ted Cruz in front of a cow statue, a statue made of butter that's like a cow. It looks like a cow. So wow, he says, "Wow, a cow made of butter."
Mm-hmm.
My girls would love it. In fact, the first sentence Caroline ever said was, "I like butter." And what's so funny about this is he's in Texas. So, like, you're encapsulating that idea. He's like, oh, Caroline.
My daughter.
My daughter. My daughter, yeah.
My food,
Yeah, my daughter, like, when talking about his daughter, etc. First sentence, which is, like, you know, momentous occasion or whatever
special.
For some people.
Yeah.
Special. The first time you do something.
Special.
Like,
it's special.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, okay.
Manipulate my feet.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised from what I've heard about him. He's apparently quite smart.
Smart, cunning, all the rest of it.
And but it's funny, like in exercising that sort of, like in exercising any sort of ability, he sort of like makes himself kind of look like a bimbo at times in front of like in front of people, like this sort of thing, like. Wow, a cow made of butter, like so like your average like intuitive thinker, they're gonna be like, what the hell? This is like so stupid. Like, wow, like it's just really it's quite funny to me, the sort of the juxtaposition between someone actually like who understands people sort of using that sort of soft influence. And sort of, you know, your stereotypical, you know, NT, who maybe an immature NT who, you know, sort of looks at that sort of thing and scoffs, right? Doesn't really see the value in it.
Mm-hmm.
But like no, that the tweet like that has a lot of power. And even, I mean, and it did turn into a meme, which I don't know if that helps him or not, but because like people just recognize that that's just ridiculous, but yeah, I'm trying to. What else did they? I'm trying to think of like iterations of a meme. It'd be like they just turn into some weird situation that's obviously not relatable at all. Like people recognize that this was him trying to be relatable. At least someone did.
Mm-hmm.
And they. Like it'd be like, wow, human sacrifice. You know, my daughter's first. it'd be like some like, you know, pagan ritual chant. My daughter's first words or first
Feed me to the flame.
Feed me to the flame. Yeah, exactly, something like that. It was really fun, but But yeah, essentially, there we go. There's some imitation for we. That's a decent discussion on sort of
if you can hijack someone's vocabulary, if you can hijack somebody's mannerisms, if you can hijack somebody's principles.
My FE does this a lot.
Yeah, it does.
Like for mannerisms, vocabulary. I like literally change dialects around people. Like I'm speaking in a completely different way once I've been around them for a little bit. And I'll say things in certain, even going down to like phraseology, like how I'm phrasing my sentences, like how I'm bringing up points, what points I'm bringing up, what I'm talking about. And the farther away that person is from myself, the more tiring that process is, which is also why, I thought I was an introvert for a while. For a while. Sort of that, well, like, even though I'm a sort of a blatant extrovert, it was, I guess, that's a whole other topic. I think gifted people are one of the reasons that pushed in, like, more of them are introverts than others. Or than others, than the general population would be because essentially they have to go, even if they are an extrovert, they still have to strain themselves socially to like fit in and be that extrovert person. Yeah. And so it does take energy and makes it. It's like, oh, social interaction makes me tired. Yeah, that's like a hallmark introvert trait, right? It's like, well.
No, yes, not necessarily. I mean, yes, it is a hallmark introverted trait, but it's not indicative.
Right, but it's not indicative by itself.
Even though it could be communication range, it could be a load of different things.
Right,
it could just be, I'm exhausted.
Right.
No, I need.
And yeah.
I need food. I need sleep. Those kinds of things.
Right. Right. It's one of those things, but yeah, and I'll find myself in a group of people, and then I'll say something or whatever, and I'm like, if I was like watching myself and analyzing myself do this, I'd be like, what a buffoon! Like, this guy's so stupid. What's he doing? Like, why am I talking like that? What am I talking about? Like, etc. And it's like, it's literally just because it's like just social intuition.
Yeah.
To me,
but human beings as herd animals are stupid. That's a part of our existence, right? We are stupid in groups for the sake of fitting into the group, because being ostracized from the group has, throughout most of our history, been fatal. And so, if one stupid idea catches on, well, guess what? Everybody likes a stupid idea.
This is a great one.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful.
Yes.
This groupthink. You have central planning going through a little dumb idea out, and oh boy, let's go crazy with it! Woohoo!
Oh my god, yeah. It's it's funny, and that to me also, there's the inappropriately excluded and sort of some of the hallmark traits of giftedness. Sort of go against, like, for example, agreeableness. A lot of times, like, gifted people have a tendency to be low in agreeableness. So it's like so if you are that person who sees flaws and points them out, you're not like is going to be as well accepted, etc. It's going to be harder for you to like shoot up power structures because it's going to be harder for people to get behind what you're saying, and like because they're like, well, that either what they're saying is scary, it's against the status, like it's against what's going on right now.
I mean, against the status quo is scary.
Yeah,
by definition.
Yes, right, exactly.
I mean, human sacrifice wasn't scary. I mean, except for maybe the person being sacrificed. For societies in which human sacrifice was the norm. Some people they would compete for the privilege of being sacrificed in some circumstances, right?
Right.
Being contrary to the norm is what makes the thing scary.
Right.
You know, the norm
Well,
of life
exactly.
is living, so death was scary to many. But then ultimately, if war is a big huge part of life, well then, oh, let's go to war. Death is a big, you know, embrace it.
Let's die. Yeah.
If you want to
Exactly.
live forever, go charge.
Oh my god, people. Yeah.
Social
So
expectations. Violating them is scary.
Yeah. So for a certain group of people to have sort of the trait of being disagreeable, it doesn't help them. And it's interesting, like it makes me think that people, like, as a species, are sort of just, or like humans as a species, sort of like have like a fatal flaw that's not like, I mean, we just have a really big fatal flaw, which is just like our oh man, there's like so many different. This is like a weird thought. I feel like our fatal flaw would be just kind of like how comforting emotions can be for us, and just like, I don't want to go out and say like, oh, emotions are stupid. They're, you know, people like, we like, because I guess without like emotion we wouldn't like quite be people, because it's such a huge part of us. But like, I guess I would, if I were to say something, I would just say emotional regulation. And like, if I were to give advice going off of this train of thought, you should really don't like discount emotion completely, but like, and of course it's easy for me to say this as the NT. I'm like, don't listen to your feelings. No, essentially, really struggle to do that. Like, we're really trying to be rational, and then we're sitting, oh, this makes me feel good. This result looks like this is what I expected. Yeah, let's go with that. Like,
Marta,
that
did you
sort of
throw
just
away
gets-
your camera? Did you throw away your camera? Do you want me to be more specific? Aw, that's unfortunate. Yes. You're giving me weird looks. I'm sorry. There's an ongoing discussion between my wife and me. Anyhow, moving right along.
There we go. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's such a like we have really hard time being rational, and like making good decisions and getting behind good decisions, and
What's
sort
that?
of like,
I wasn't referring.
how's that? I was like, it's like talking about good decisions. What's that? Like, oh,
Well, I mean, I don't know about those either. So please do enlighten me.
oh well, I'm no no paladin of great decision making either. So what can I say? But no. I don't know. It's sort of just a problem that I don't think will be ameliorated anytime soon, if ever.
See, now you're going and copying choice of words.
What?
My choice of words.
Ameliorate?
Yes. I noticed that after I start using a word for a while, I've been playing around with my vocabulary just to see what words different people start to pick up, and I've discovered that you and Caleb both change your vocabulary when I change mine. Like, I started using the word predicated instead of based. And then all of a sudden, everyone's talking about how things are predicated on this, and this is predicated on that, and so on.
Predicated was a word that I essentially, as I say essentially a lot, quite obviously. I've been
essentially you do that. Like, you essentially do,
it's just such a good word. It's such a good word. But predicated, I was watching, because my vocabulary is pretty shit for what it should be. And a lot of times I'll try to learn new words, but I'm like, God, I'm never gonna use this word, so it just floats right out of my head. I'm like, I just can't keep like stupid, like I can't keep pointless things in my head. Like if it, like my head is, my brain has this filter that's like, hey, you're not gonna like need that, or like that's not interesting to you. Wow, you're not gonna use that word, so it just goes away. And yeah, so I was watching some, I guess I learned 2 words that day, and it was expedient and predicated. And you know, I learned both those, and I thought about it. I was like, those are good words.
That is not expedient. What in the world is that predicated on? I don't know.
Yeah, and but predicated has been a really good word. Like, that's just so much better. Like you could really, based is one of those things you could kind of, I feel like, overuse. Like, oh, this is based on that. Like, it's a good, really good, you know, replacement. I like it. So yeah, that's a word, but I do use that one quite a bit as of kind of recent months. Ameliorate, yeah, I heard you use that, and I knew the word, and I was like, yeah, it's a good word.
It's kind of fun because I think that we tend to, based on whatever our circumstances are, pick words that suit the situation. And that's a cool thing, actually, about being from the U.S. and living abroad, or being abroad at all with people that know English. Is they don't necessarily have the same emotional link up to certain words. How we have ways, based on our geography and based on our surroundings, how we say certain things. There are certain things that just roll off the tongue more easily.
Oh yeah.
I've noticed that intelligent people in generally are more precise with their words. They say what they mean better than their vocabulary reflects a certain amount of nuanced thinking. I've noticed that especially in intelligent people speaking in English as a foreign language, because they go and they research the word. They don't necessarily have the vocabulary as implicitly as we do, and so they will go and nail it. Their vocabulary will hit the bullseye, and they demonstrate far better vocabulary. At least my friends from here demonstrate better English vocabulary than many of my friends that were born in the States.
Right.
And they're like, well, I'm sorry, I can't think of exactly the right word, but can I use this in this context? It's like, yeah, you can, and yeah, that's better than what most people would be using if they're trying to describe that particular phenomenon.
Yeah, right.
It's like, don't go knocking your English. Yeah, you have an accent. That's about the only thing that would have indicated anything to me. I mean, you go and start talking like this, you start teaching a university class, and half the students are going to be scratching their heads wondering what you're talking about, because you are using vocabulary that is so far out there.
Right.
That only the people that have bothered to use precise terminology or learn it in order to be able to function in a particular field will even be able to follow you.
Exactly.
It's
for me,
awesome.
For me, instead of, like, it seemed to be a trend for me in the past, is it's easier for me to think of a weird analogy than to like learn something new, like some new like discrete piece of information. So when I'm learning something, there was very little very little push for me to both externally and internally. Like, there was little push for me to to go out there and consciously increase my vocabulary, as far as you know, like I wasn't going to just go out there and research words, like, in etc. And I've done that a little bit in recent times, just because I was like, well, I want to catch up a little bit with some of the things I should know at this point.
Yeah.
And it's good to know words and be educated and stuff like that. And but like for me, a lot of times when I'll be describing something that I don't have the words for, like I just use an analogy. Like hey, this is like this, but like this. And that works really well with some people, and it falls completely flat on its face with others.
Well, it has to do with whether or not people think in terms of analogies. Is it an easy... I mean, if you have somebody that doesn't know the vocabulary and can't think in terms of analogies, well, then I guess that topic is kind of off the table, unless you plan on spending way too long explaining something. It's kind of like a joke in that sense, that if you have to explain the joke, well, it immediately ceases to be funny.
Yeah, no, exactly.
If you have to explain something that you thought was a basic, or a very simple basic tenet of a particular point that you're espousing or what have you, and then you get so wrapped up in discussing it that you can't actually get to whatever it is that you were going to get to. I was like, well, maybe we need to just change tack a little bit and discuss something else. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. That leads me to like sort of the phenomenon of jokes falling flat on their face. And sort of like the reason they stop being funny is you get the opposite response. Like jokes are supposed to like liven up the atmosphere, make everyone more relaxed, make everyone trust each other more.
And they're all laughing when you screw up a joke,
and even if you don't get a joke, like it's socially, you feel like you still have to laugh. And it's a weird feeling, or like if you miss, it happens to me all the time. Like I missed completely what they said. I really wasn't being attentive, or like it might be just out of context that I don't know. But like, but a lot of times I pick up on jokes most of the time, and sometimes weird ones that other people don't, but people don't. But then like that feeling when you know, like I'm perceptive enough to be like, well, they just said a joke. Like I can just tell by either the way they said it or like kind of their like expression afterwards, like the like expecting you to do something.
Yeah, I'm slightly proud of myself for coming up with this. Now you validate me and laugh.
Yes, validate my pride, please. No, I had it's just exactly that. It is like just falls flat on its face, and you have to explain it, and it's like, that's clever. So someone will say that afterwards, like the most like consolation prize. Like, oh, God, most conciliatory thing to say. Just, oh yeah, that's pretty good. Like, and it's like just.
Oh, that's
bad.
A fun
like,
joke.
It's like, oh God, because it's you in the end. When a joke falls flat in the face, some of the burden falls on the person who made the joke. For
not ascertaining whether or not that was an appropriate time or place for the joke,
right?
Appropriate delivery, and so on.
It's them. It's an appropriate varying, depending on like what's okay. Well, it could be a funny joke, and like very loose and fine for the situation, but you did it to the wrong crowd because they don't understand that joke. That's
or you didn't have the social capital to be able to pull it off. If you can't define social norms as being something different than what they are. If you don't have the social capacity, the social capital to be able to say, okay, I'm going to spend a bit of my social capital today on doing things a little bit differently than the rest of the group, and just because of the force of my character or whatever, other people are going to come along.
Right.
Sometimes you can. Sometimes you can't.
I really like this. That's really a good point. As if you do have that, just to make it work. Basically. That's quite interesting. So rich, if you're really rich and attractive and famous, just
you can make stupid jokes.
Like knock jokes.
I remember there was
purposely bad.
A man with very high net worth on Quora wrote an answer, or he was polling people. He's like, okay, I'm going to go and pick my nose at the next board meeting and see how people react. I'm going to just go and act.
Everyone starts picking their nose.
Nobody says anything to him, so he just starts violating all these social norms. It's like, I'm going to pick my nose I'm going to pick my nose while chairing a board meeting, and nobody says, why are you picking your nose? Nobody. Oh, he used to be picking it. All right. To be successful, one must pick one's nose in a meeting. It's like, no, being able to pick one's nose in one's meeting. being able to pick one's nose in one's meeting without having social repercussions is a sign of being successful, not the other way around.
Yes. If only it was community or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, the privilege of violating social norms comes with being powerful in the first place.
Yes.
Beautiful.
And
rich.
when you buy, and all the other, that's one of those things. It's one of those like phrases you can just say the like one way and then say it the other, and people be like, they'll just nod their heads, and because for some reason when things have some sort of rhythm to them, oh my god, we're just going into really interesting psychological stuff today for me, but like. When people say things like with a little bit of rhythm to them, like it just sound good, right? Like it just sounds nice. Like I feel like it's just you're more likely to believe things. So like, if you think of like music, like that's part of the appeal to music is people say things. Good lyrics are sort of like really trite things, but they're said in like a nice rhythmic way and with emotion and all these things are like, oh, so true. So people will be like, whoa, so true, it sounds so good, like what great lyrics, and etc. In the same way, like, so for example, it's like the phrase that came to mind that I've been laughing about, that's sort of, I might be like going off of like something that I was laughing about in my head that probably like no one here is thinking about, but I'll like talk about it. Like, so he's, you know, people who cannot, so, you know, we were talking about how people who can violate social norms and get no repercussions are probably powerful people. So it's like, I mean, I was just thinking of someone being like, if you can do, it's like, well, if you can violate social norms and get no repercussions, you're powerful. You're probably powerful if you violate social norms. Or it's like, if you violate social norms, you will be powerful. Like, you could, like, say things in a certain way and say them in a certain rhythm and off of what was, like, you know, it's like statement X using these words in this sort of, and using this set of words was true. And it's, and we're like, all right, so I can say, it's like, all right, it's like saying, okay, 2 + 2 is 4. Yes. 2 + 2 is 4. And then like rearranging it around and be like, oh, 4 + 2 is 2. So then it's like using the same numbers and using the same words that did sound right in the other context, but just rearranging them in a weird, like, I feel like that's something that happens quite often. Maybe not quite often, but like it's something that just does happen. Like something is said in a correct way, and then someone just rearranges those words in a certain like rhythmic fashion, following right after the other statement, and it sounds right too, even if it could be completely preposterous. And I think I've seen this in cartoons actually. Like people, like they do, like, you know, someone will give them directions, and then you repeat that they, like a character will give another character directions, and the other one will repeat it back completely wrong, but it'll be the same things. But it's like, all right, and so it ends up screwing them up in some way, and they'll be like, yeah, that's right, you got it. It just sounds right. I don't know why that was kind of interesting to me, but I think it's funny.
I put the link. I put the Quora link into the chat box.
Oh, awesome! I'm really interested in this.
It was a good. I was just. I was simultaneously flabbergasted and then just thinking, no, not really. I mean, I can see this working. I remembered a few of the details wrong, unfortunately, but that's the basic answer.
Jacob says not sure how common this is, but I do a lot of my thinking by visualizing concepts spatially, so it can be unnatural for me to convert them to words. Writing a Quora has been a great practice.
Oh, certainly. Communicating with the written word is difficult because you have a medium that you need to cram other things into that don't necessarily fit naturally therein. I mean, sure, the language can be rich, but you still have to play games in order to make things work. And I've also noticed that on the other hand, on the other end of the things, lots of people have difficulty reading something and then visualizing it. if it's something that needs to be visualized, or conceptualizing it in any conceivable way.
Right.
It's
I'm reading.
It's really strange.
Ali O Ashamsi.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like a wealthy guy. Yeah. It's funny though. And it goes back to some literary trope of like,
Mm-hmm.
and there's certain people who like for example, this guy. I'm picturing it in literally in like some sort of literary work. You know, you have the rich boss who's looking for upcoming talent to take over the company, and then there's the he's in a meeting doing something, and he's testing something like this. Like, it's like, all right, whoever calls me out on picking boogers and screwing up, I want them to, you know, be the figurehead in my company, because, you know,
He's calling me out on picking boogers and screwing things up. I don't need people picking boogers and screwing things up in my company, even if that person happens to be me.
Yeah, exactly. And you'd have some sort of situation like that.
It's like, call out the person that points and says the emperor has no clothes. I mean, that's the wisest person in the whole kingdom.
Yeah.
Or maybe not, if you're afraid of saying that's going to get you executed, but, you know, wisest and ballsiest.
It's hard to think of any sort of situation with people in it that hasn't been covered already by some book somewhere.
Yeah, the emperor's new clothes. That's,
there we go.
That story has been told for I don't know how long. I mean, you can go and find an awful lot about humanity in Grimm's Brothers fairy tales.
Yeah.
They're horrible too. The safe kiddie versions of the fairy tales are not real at all. I read all of Grimm's fairy tales to my daughter when she was, you know, very little. Did that before bed. My wife was. My wife wasn't necessarily the happiest when she overheard me reading one of the stories. Like, I'm reading bedtime stories to my daughter.
Oh my god, Grimm's. Oh, and I'm looking at them because I don't think I've read these, well, I mean, but I've heard of them.
I mean, yeah, you've heard of. I'm sure you've heard of a lot of them, like Little Red Riding Hood.
Oh yeah,
the story about the is it Hansel and Gretel. They're just, you know.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
But the thing is, an awful lot of the kiddie versions have happy endings, where an awful lot of the Grimm's brothers tales wind up having people die. It's
That's funny. Well, I mean, people dying isn't funny, but depending. Maybe if they qualify for a Darwin Award.
Well, the people that do qualify for Darwin Awards oftentimes wind up being the ones that die, or at least the people that deserve to die wind up dying. It's
yes, set justice.
Yeah,
that is one thing that's interesting to me. That is, like if people do something stupid and they really suffer the consequences badly, it's like our empathy sort of really like just goes away, right? We're like, well, dumb, like idiot, of course, like, right? And of course, with the Darwin Wars, there's like a hyperbolized version of this, where it's like, okay, man, like really, like you're really pushing it here. Like, what did you expect? Like, you're masturbating with some fucking machine, dude. Of course, you're gonna, you know, just destroy your scrotum or whatever. Like, what do you want, man? But like, when people make mistakes, it's like it goes all the way. We're just really like we like seeing people like trying to get screwed up for their like mistakes they make.
Yes.
And it's kind of interesting.
We like justice. When other people are served justice, and we like mercy when we are served mercy.
Yes. Right. It's just interesting.
Everyone should suffer the consequences of their actions, except for me and people I care about. Why do you think that people root for the protagonist? The protagonist is the one we root for. That's why.
Oh my god.
Which, by the way, the protagonist is an ENFJ.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that makes complete sense, actually. The protagonist is an ISTP.
ISTP. I mean, I suppose you could you could actually pull that. You could technically pull that on. No. Be too quiet. Yeah, the ISTP I think could conceivably be the most quiet of all the types.
They're apparently one of the no, it's the ESTP. It's like the least stressed type, I think.
Yeah.
ENTP was second least stressed.
Yeah.
So I'm just picturing like maybe an ESTP. I'm trying to think who would be the worst protagonist.
The worst protagonist. But that's yeah, that explains a lot actually, because that would be my brother.
Maybe an ENTJ.
An ENTJ.
Everyone hates them. They're like, no. The reader's like, die, please.
Well,
I don't want.
Or you could. I mean, there are actually story arcs around ENTJs. There are like ENTJs that are immature. Then they go and they mature and they actually turn into really amazing. Yeah, like there are story arcs around.
It's one of those where you just turn them into the
But there's more fifis involved when you have the ENFJ, so it's easier to write a story around them.
Fifis, yes.
Fifis, quite literally, isn't it? It's no, it's not. Yeah, it is. ENFJ. That's FENI. Yeah,
FE first.
Isn't it FENIT? NISETI? No. J. Okay, so J would mean the extroverted function comes first. FE.
Yeah.
Yeah. FENISETI.
Man, FE first. FE is the most powerful sub one. No, I'm kidding. But
yeah, and it's also one of my most inferior functions.
When it comes to working with people, I think it's the most powerful.
Certainly, that explains why my brother doesn't really make all that many enemies, or rather why he always has somebody in his corner rooting for him.
Yeah, the corner rooting for me. Like, my mom will talk to like people, who like I knew when I was little or something. Like either I was under their care or something. Like, for example, my mom, like there was aftercare in my elementary since my parents worked. I couldn't just go home since no one was there. So I would have aftercare, and they'd pick me up from that and at the school. And this lady, I was like a mischievous kid, and I, broke a lot of rules and got in trouble all the time. And this lady still loved me. She's like, "Oh, Steven, he's gonna turn out great. Steven's gonna be great." The person in the corner, like that's the FE wins you, that person in the corner. It's kind of funny. And then if it is an FE that wins, it's you being similar to them in some regard that they've you know, it's mirroring, you know, in some way, some capacity. Like, you know, he's going to turn out right. That kid's got it. Like, it's just interesting. People say that, but they say that, I think, at themselves, not at others. Almost like, oh, they're going to turn out right. They're going to turn out great. This kid's going to be great because, like, well, they're like me, so they have to. I'm the
protagonist of my story.
Exactly. It's pretty interesting. I don't get to have these sorts of conversations with other people very often, so it's good. Be like, what the hell is this guy talking? I don't like that guy. He makes me uncomfortable.
Who makes whom uncomfortable?
Who makes who uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, who makes whom uncomfortable? I'm not uncomfortable. Are you uncomfortable?
I'm quite comfortable in my pajamas.
Would you be uncomfortable if I did this?
You know, only if you did that for like an hour straight and didn't say anything. Like, or like, the joke's over, Matt. Matt, we get the joke. Like, still there. It's like, okay, I'm actually worried now. That would get, so there's a potential for but no. That'd be a very ENTP thing, is to like make kind of a joke like that, like make a face and then just push the joke, like push well over the edge of the joke. Like, it's like, all right, Matt, stop doing it now.
Yeah, it's like, if you push it, if you push to a certain extent, it's not funny. But then if you just go completely overboard to the point where it's ridiculous, it becomes funny again.
Yeah, go into the new realm of like, it's like, that's just what Matt does now. He just makes that face. He hasn't talked in weeks. He just makes his face. Like, the joke is like, what the hell? No. But that's a very ENTP thing to do, would be like push the joke too far, a little bit, but only a little bit too far, like just enough that they like
to give a hint of discomfort.
Yeah, just so people like don't know how to feel about it. Oh my god! Yeah, I read our answer about that. They're like, "What does the mature ENTP do? Stop pushing people's buttons. Stop making, essentially putting people on edge in some way." And that's what I had commented on that. I'm happy that what I like. It's one of those things, because I had noticed my dad doing this, and I thought like this occurrence happening and then it being documented in some way, regardless if it's a core answer, it gave me some sort of like, okay, so I'm actually thinking the right way about this. Because noticing things my dad would do in groups of people, I was like, it seems like he's just pushing their buttons, and he says these kind of off-color things, but not like completely off-color.
Well, there's plausible deniability. There's ability to back out and plausible deniability.
There's always plausible deniability in what he's doing, and I'm like, well, man, like, but I don't like. This just seems like he's doing something. Like, he's doing something more here, right? Like, it feels like, like, and it always, like, I'd always laugh. Like, I always laughed every time. It'd be pretty funny. Like, he'd say something, and I'd either laugh at what he said. I'd laugh at I'd laugh at other people cringing. I'd laugh at the joke sometimes. I'd laugh at the fact that my dad's just saying this sort of thing in a group of people, like, just like
the whole situation. There's humor on all sorts of different levels.
On all fronts, right? So I'd always be laughing.
I mean, it's like it was more fun to watch my mom watch TV than it was to watch TV.
Right. It's one. Yeah. Exactly.
If our friends would, I didn't really tell my mom all this, but if for example friends wanted to come over, what are you doing this evening? Well, we're going to watch my mom watch TV. What do you mean you watch your mom watch TV? I said, well, watching my mom watch TV is way more fun than watching TV. Do you want to come over and watch my mom watch TV?
It's like, all right, I have to try it out. Yeah, it's funny. Oh man. And yeah, it's one of those things I was just watching my dad doing. There's it has to be some like pushing people's buttons to like my hypothesis was that it's just like basically like social, like experimentation that also like kind of nets you some power, like some social power, and by doing that, like you're like sort of taking an aggressive stance to people, and like asserting dominance in some sort of way, by like making them uncomfortable, and like it's socially rewarding to do that for you, while it is to their detriment at times, because it's not blatant enough that they're gonna remember the social gathering by God, Dan Stutz is just a prick. Like, he's just, I'm not going to hang out with that guy anymore. He's just annoying. But it's like, so it's not like that. Because obviously, if you break social norms too much, obviously it's bad. There's a reason for norms.
Unless you go redefine
But
them.
it's like, right, unless you redefine them.
But yeah, in general.
But it was like,
yeah.
But it's not bad enough to like warrant, like, God, I'm not going to hang out with that guy. To where it'd be socially deleterious for my dad. But it is enough to, in the moment, give him some like he's the firm ground, while everyone else is kind of like, they're not as sure-footed. So yeah, but it's literally a thing ENTPs do. So it was one of those things that I looked up and I was like, oh yeah. I was actually right. Like what I was saying was right.
And the INTJ eggs the ENTP on.
Okay, yes.
That is such a fun dynamic to do. It's even more fun. Well, it actually depends on the subject, but it's also very fun to egg on an ESTP.
ESTP. I don't know if I know any ESTPs.
Do you know any salesmen?
So okay, yes. Okay. I don't know if yeah, I might know it. Yeah, I think I know it. Okay. Okay, I know. I do know.
Almost all the ESTPs I know are pastors.
Oh, they're pastors.
Almost all of them are pastors. It's hilarious. Because today we had a coffee hour after church.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone with a very loud, booming voice cracks a joke about nudism, and then both the pastor and the assistant pastor just start cracking up. Meanwhile, the women are just like, "I can't believe you said that. Why would you have said that?" Meanwhile, every single guy in the room,
oh my God,
starts laughing.
Yeah,
it's awesome. It's like the
so
pastors don't care. They don't care. They didn't care. It was great.
When you say the INTJ eggs the ENTP, or whatever on the situation that I think of in my head is mostly the ENTP trying to like use their their powers on the INTJ, and the INTJ being like, "That's pretty funny. Keep doing it." And so they kind of like.
Well, see, right now you're trying to use your powers on me in order to try to make me feel superior, so that I go and wind up getting rid of my. I mean, how many levels deep are you going to go here? But
oh my God, you're getting too meta. No, I feel like I'm being called out. No, but
well, of course I have to. I have to, even though I know it's not necessarily. I mean, it's totally possible for that to happen, but I realize that it's not happening. Of course, I could just be saying that I realize that it's not happening because it actually is happening.
It's the endless loop. No.
Yeah.
But like from what I've seen, is the INTJ the INTJ?
Well, the INTJ just thinks it's hilarious, no matter who it's being used upon. Or there's some element of humor, NT humor that just.
Yeah, it's the NT humor just in general. Because I think all the NTs sort of like they can like kind of respect what the other NTs are doing, even and like see what they're doing, even if they're not themselves. Because just having those core letters together sort of gives you enough common ground to be like, oh, I see. So when they see the social experimentation of an ENTP, the other NTs who wouldn't do that sort of thing, just they're not really equipped to do that as well, because they're just not quite as they don't have that the strong FE or whatever, and they're like, just even if they could do it and they want to do it, it's just the execution just won't be as good. So they can see the other type doing this certain thing and be like, that's pretty good. Like, oh yeah, keep doing it. I see what you're doing there.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. Because I found that my NT friends really love when I do this social
Oh, they're hilarious! It's hilarious. It's awesome.
They just love they really want me at every party or every get together, to hear what I have to say, some random on some stupid thing. And they the NT's yeah, this is funny.
It's fun.
The ENTP is the performer for the NT crowd, you know.
Yes. Yes.
And the
ESTP is the performer for everyone else.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Pretty much. But it's pretty interesting stuff. Yeah. I mean, I have nothing more to say on that. But yeah, it's interesting. I really like the. A lot of people hate it, or they all this should be this should be a logical fallacy too. It's kind of like when people are talking about something like IQ, especially, or
oh boy,
or personality, or something like that. You can't trivialize something so complex or so far beyond the reaches of human conception. You mere mortal daring to fit for everyone.
We're using it where the shoe fits. Where the shoe fits where.
Yeah, exactly.
If the shoe doesn't fit, well then don't try to cram your foot into a too tight shoe or what have you. I mean, that's just dumb. Don't do
it. Yeah, exactly. And so, but it's kind of the argument. This argument. This is impossible. There's no way you could it's I've seen so many arguments against IQ tests and stuff, whatever. And if you understand what IQ tests are about, and what they're for, what their limitations and stuff, they do what they set out to do pretty decently. They're not no one was all right, I'm gonna do the test that just perfectly encapsulates the essence of what human intelligence, whatever that is,
or what humanity is. Yeah, I mean,
and we can measure it. It's okay, no one said to do that. It's something. It's a tool, basically.
Lots of people are tools, but that's it.
They probably didn't provide as much value as that one, but anyway, I mean, is it? No, I'm not going to go into it anyway. But it's sort of an argument. It's the argument. It's and it's people's argument against this sort of thing. Well, it's boiled down to there's no way us as humans could possibly, you can't conceptualize, you can't simplify something so broad and complex down to this. You can't simplify things. You can't, I feel like that's I feel like it's S's who do that. I think it's an S. Just because when you simplify things, you lose details naturally. And so, when you're talking about something that sort of requires details, but you get a big picture, you get the big picture from those details.
But you can still understand the constraints of whatever it is that you're doing.
Well, yeah.
You would hope that people would understand the constraints.
Well, that's a big hope.
Uh-huh.
I think that's a lot to hope for, in all honesty, unfortunately.
Alright, I found the right emoji for that.
What about reminds me of something I saw. Um, it reminds me of something I saw that was like it was such a stupid thing. It was like 4 pills, and it's like, if you eat this pill, you can read minds. If you can eat this pill, you can use 80% of your brain. I was like, oh god, I don't want that pill.
That's a pill I'm definitely not taking.
It's like here's.
It's like if you have 80% electrical activity in your brain, I think that's getting pretty close to a grand mal seizure.
You can only, it's like, all right, and it's a sedative. It's a horse tranquilizer. That's the pill. Like,
the horse
oh god. That's
what is using your maximum mental capacity anyway? I mean, that's
it's one of those.
I mean, literally, the biggest use of your brain capacity is having a grand mal seizure. So I'm pretty sure that's not what people are talking about.
Electricity. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
no.
inducing the seizure for like a long yeah. No. So that's what. Perhaps my 0% on agreeableness explains why I don't have pastors in my life, or people who believe we can use 10% of our brains. 0% on agreeableness. Yeah, that actually would explain parts of it.
Yeah, but apparently he's sold on the 11%. You know, it just that one extra percent. That's all it takes.
A little line, yeah.
A total little
line. I can tell Todd likes sarcasm.
Oh,
for example,
boy. And I can tell that I like having Todd around. It's awesome.
Well, Peter, both are more intelligent, and both are less intelligent.
Yeah, it's man, intelligence and IQ and the conflation and the limitations. I mean, it's just ugh.
Yeah.
The answer is always it's complex, but then when people try to go and bog things down with unnecessary complexity, well, then that's another problem. So it's like use complexity where it's relevant.
Right.
Use a relevant amount of complexity to whatever the situation is at hand. Whether that means giving a simple answer to a simple, or to a question that necessitates a simple answer. I mean, heck, there are complex questions with simple answers, and simple answers with complex, or simple questions with complex answers, and everywhere in between. But just use the appropriate tool for the job, and don't be afraid to say I don't know if you don't know, because there are lots of things I don't know about. And I think any intellectually honest person either has not exerted any intellectual effort whatsoever, or runs into a whole lot of things on a regular basis that we can never know to say a satisfactory level of certainty to answer a particular question about it.
Yep.
Oh, hi Yetta.
That reminds me of a question I was 8 to 8 on Quora recently.
Oh boy.
And it was like, how many profoundly gifted people are there in China? Like, well, I really don't know. I don't.
Yes, we're calling on all tools.
It's funny.
Oh, this is funny.
It's like, well,
using more of your brain is learning techniques to think and use more efficiently, perhaps. But then don't say use more of your brain. Say
use my brain better.
Use your brain better. Like don't screw up my brain's cellular metabolism. Don't screw up my hormones, so that the different parts of my brain can interact wrongly and have deleterious effects on my goals. Like, be specific as to what it is that you want. That would be what I would suggest. And if you don't know enough biology to be specific, well then I would say that learning a lot about neurobiology and learning a lot about cellular metabolism and learning a lot about endocrinology will get you going in the right direction.
Yeah. Pretty much. it's one thing that I found with questions is that I just answered how I want to. Like my recent answer on do opinionated people act like inhumane bullies sometimes? Like the answer is yes. Like it's just the answer is just yes.
And that would be a simple answer to what could be a very complex or a simple question, depending on how you take it.
And you can go to whatever level you want of complexity with that sort of question. So
yeah, no matter what level you go, there are going to be some people that like your answer and some people that don't like it, and some people will think it's too deep. Somebody will think it's not deep enough. So
yeah,
I mean, people can be thankful and gripe about pretty much anything. It's it's just a function of the way things are.
Yeah. Yeah. John, your answer didn't. It was a great answer, but you forgot a period somewhere.
Or you didn't go and open this entire can of worms that would have turned a a 400 word answer into a 400,000 word answer.
Yeah,
I didn't open that can of worms for a reason. There are certain levels of complexity that weren't worth. No. Yeah, yeah. There are certain levels of complexity that weren't worth going into.
Right, or assumed, or yeah. Oh god. Yeah. Sometimes people can just seem like robots almost. I feel like the responses they have to questions on core. It's like, oh, this guy wrote this answer. I bet I can see someone disagreeing with, or who's going to argue about this point in the answer, even though that's really not relevant. I can tell someone's going to bring it up. And then you go to the comments, and there, lo and behold, there it is. Well, you didn't talk about it. It's like, God.
Sometimes you can preempt them though, and I've seen people successfully do that. Preemptively engage with whatever the potential problems people might have. But the problem is you can't
hit everyone.
Or if you do, I mean, everything is going to be a 500-page book. Is the sky blue? Exactly. Well,
it depends. Do you think shades of hue deserve to be summarized into a color away from their own? Blue didn't ask to be called blue, but we just call it that. Like, don't you think that's just wrong?
Yes, and at one point in history, the colors green and blue were conflated with each other in terms of naming, even though people were able to see the difference. I mean, or what's Rayleigh scattering?
Well, I think we're being very, I don't think we're being very nice to the colors, and we're giving them names.
And then also saying, "Oh, the sky is blue." What about in the morning? What about in the evening? Sunrise, sunset. I mean, there's the pink sky, there's the orange sky, there's all those other colors. I mean, can't say the sky's always blue, can you?
No, that's wrong. You have people who are pedantic, then you have people who are pedantic but in a different way, and it all just boils down to people being pedantic. And you're like, well, you see, just mutter something under your breath and get along with it. But oh my god,
people
oh man,
can be aggravating, but
yeah. I know.
I think that has a lot to do with the whole status monkey thing that we were talking about. How people have their own views of the world and their own things. They want to have it be. They want to be proven right in their positions. We, to some extent, want to be proven right in ours. Even if our positions are, I mean, if I have a position that something is so nuanced that I can't possibly have an opinion on it, or a thorough opinion on it, but this is kind of a basic idea, and then somebody else comes and says blah blah blah, period. I mean, that could technically be an affront to me, thinking that something needs you can have a certain kind of opinion, but you can only attach a certain level of certainty to said opinion. But and if I weren't secure enough in myself, I could conceivably be like, oh, that view is invalidates me, or I don't feel validated by it. Therefore, I'm going to go and have a rampage against this person with a different view that doesn't jive with it. Please. No. No.
Yeah. Oh my god, yeah. Jesus. People.
Oh, there's a moth. Interesting. I suppose it got through a hole in the screen. Oh well.
That moth deserves to be rewarded. He's thwarted his
Interesting.
he is being rewarded with the light that he gets to now repeatedly slam himself into.
Well, it's not even fluttering around the light. The light. It's gone and is seemingly still behind the refrigerator.
Oh, I see. He's found a place to hide.
Mm-hmm. I suppose it's warm.
Yeah. It's supposed to.
All right. Tell me this. Why would anyone ever think that opening the refrigerator would cool a room down?
Why would anyone think that?
I mean, I get the very basic. It's cold. Refrigerator makes things cold, so it cools the room down. I understand that.
Well, like volumetrically, I already feel like there's a huge constraint there, right? Like,
yeah, and you would need to have the coils outside.
Yeah, and so
I'm like, yeah,
fridges work.
Yeah,
I don't know how fridges work. I don't know how fridges work, but I'll go out and
it's a heat pump.
So it puts the heat. It heat pumps. What I was going to say, in some way, the heat. It's the heat's getting moved somewhere away from the fridge. They're taking the heat away from the area. They're not cooling is just an absence of heat, so you're just removing the heat in some way.
Yeah, you are doing work.
Yes.
To move heat away from some other place. So, which means you are generating more heat than you're removing from the.
Right.
I mean, otherwise, perpetual motion machining coming, right? You can have a refrigerator and a heater that just. No, it doesn't work that way.
Oh, right.
It's just a heat pump. So, just go feel behind the refrigerator. The cooling wire, the thing where you pump the fluid. It's not Freon, but whatever the thing that goes and carries the heat gets cooled off to room temperature in the grate behind the thing, and then the inside gets cold because the heat's pumped away.
Right.
I mean, just like an air conditioning, just like anything of that nature. You should go look up Carnot engine and Carnot.
I'm glad my mom never said, "You're gonna cool down the room." No, she's always like, "Close the fridge. You're gonna make our electricity bill go up."
That's very true, because well, I mean, you're going to be pumping. I mean, if the heat doesn't need to be pumped out in order to maintain a particular temperature and it's insulated, well, then you're not going to be using that. But thinking you're going to somehow cool the room, that's stupid and delusional. The only way you're going to be cooling the room is if the heating coil is somewhere else. And you're going to be warming that place up.
Yeah, you would actually be warming the room up, yeah. And if it wasn't, then you have a really big discovery on your hands and a potential to make a lot of money. Your fridge was somehow turned into a perpetual motion machine. Oh, man.
Oh, see ya, Peter.
Oh, is Peter departing? Departing? Let's see.
Yes. Being pedantic is appealing because it's an easy way to show people you're correct about something. Yeah. It is. Nuanced perception and confident conclusions. Boy, everyone's making fun of me with a moth. Paula's here too.
Oh, nice. It's been. Oh, there's yeah.
Yeah. Being pedantic it's a very easy way of being right, because then you can always introduce some. You can always introduce something. So
Right.
I think that an awful lot of what helps these discussions in general just winds up having to do with they become considerably easier the less you care about what other people think. And they also become considerably easier the more okay you are with uncertainty. But if there are things that you can be certain about, well then, that's great, and be certain about them.
Let's see. Peter loves moss. That's cool. Let's see. Seems there's a reverse correlation between nuanced perception and confident conclusions.
Yeah.
It would seem that way.
Stefan Molyneux had a really fun piece about that. Monkey, throw poo.
Like it's when you're right. It's like really hard to. Sometimes it's really hard to be convincing about, and not like you need to market yourself, but like it's hard to sometimes because you're like, well, I don't know 100%, or there's this flaw here, etc., etc.
Yeah.
While the other person.
Yeah, there are all these complexities that these other people aren't taking into account. And then you wind up having somebody. You have the ShamWow guy, for example. Okay, you have Billy. You have Billy Mays. You have the ShamWow guy. You have all these other people that are just making these.
Hey, look, guys! It's a freaking rag. I'm selling you a piece of cloth, but look, it's absorbent.
And only $19.99. I'll give you 2 of them.
Now you're gonna need two of them for all the drool you have to be scooping up on a daily basis. So this is a really good deal for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, you can go pee on your carpet. You can go pee on your carpet, and this, I promise you, sprinkle a little baking soda on the area, stick this thing on there, roll it up, and wring it out into a bowl. And then when somebody decides they're going to eat from the bowl and then pukes all over someplace else, you can use the thing all over again.
It's like, oh, wonderful.
It's like, no, just no.
Yeah. But I mean, come on. Like, the people buying the ShamWow probably do need to clean up drool every once in a while. So maybe it isn't a really bad purchase for them. It's like oh crap! It's like, oh god, I was washing the dishes and thinking again. Oh, there goes control over my lower jaw. Oh god, all this multitasking. Oh god, I was watching TV and eating. Oh, there it goes.
Oh boy.
Need my ShamWow. Oh yeah. It's like Flex. Reminds me, like, man, infomercials are funny. I've been seeing memes about them. Like the Flex. There's this thing called Flex Seal. It's just this, like, kind of like rubber material, and it's a good sealant, right? Like you can like straight up like put it on. Like you could have like a leak and something with water, and you just like slap this shit on there, and like it'll like, I mean, it's apparently pretty good. I don't know how much, for the camera, how much is actually good. I don't even know if the product's actually, like, I have no idea about the product, just how it's advertised. And they're like, look, like they'll like destroy something and they'll just like put it together with this like tape, the Flex Seal, and then the memes I saw around it are like, it's like, look at this awful marriage, like it's broken beyond repair, but look, I have Flex Seal. like here's it'll be like, tectonic plates, whatever. Regardless, Flex Seal can fix all of it. Has, again, what I just said. This tangent has no point, but it's just funny, just for humor.
Well, yeah, it does. It shows how people tend to overly simplify things, and then of course it becomes, the butt of jokes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
The Lord of Moths? Oh no. Oh boy.
Jordan Peterson will go down as the Lord of Moths. The Lobster King. Why do they call him the Lobster King?
I think that because he made a point about the same general system of serotonin existing within populations of lobsters, and it being demonstrated that serotonin was associated with status in groups of lobsters. And so he went and basically said, okay, if you finally the moth has decided to orbit the light. If you if you have see, now I lost track of the thing because I'm watching a moth. What was I saying?
I don't know. I was distracted by, like, I was picturing kind of like a comedic sketch in my head of, like, kind of like moths, like, all right, I'm
Squirrel!
off to work, and then just like, no, like hitting themselves against the wall over and over, like against the light over and over. See, honey, off to work, like just slamming into the white light over and over again.
So
I just laughed.
But yeah,
like,
Jordan Peterson
something
talked
like
about. Oh
that.
yes, he used it as a thing, saying, okay, do things to increase your serotonin level. One of them was like stand up straight, have your shoulders back, kind of a thing. You know, chin and chest out, that kind of a thing. You know, do things that make you, or that would make you think that you have increased status.
Mm-hmm.
Like have good posture, carry yourself well, things of that nature. And so people, I guess, I mean, I don't know too much about Jordan Peterson, but apparently people turn that into a meme. It's like, oh, he's just Lobster Man or whatever it is, Lobster King.
Oh man, SJW's talking about clown. Let's see.
Well, I mean, there is actually a biological basis for doing that, and it simply has to do with looking at how lobsters do behave hierarchically. I think that's all. I mean, it's there's nothing wrong with demonstrating a hierarchical system based upon the serotonin levels of people. I mean, if you have low serotonin as a lobster, you are likely to get picked on or die. We as humans, we're a little bit more sympathetic, a little more empathetic, and so on. But by and large, you'll find picking on the low status people as kind of a thing, and then those that dare stand up for the person with low status often wind up being the subject of picking on due to guilt by association. And so ultimately, if you actually do want to stand up for weak people, or if that's something that you're interested in doing, you ultimately have to come and do that from a position of strength. Otherwise, you'll be undermined. Like you need to be more strong in order to be able to lift people up. Otherwise, serotonin will come to bite you in the butt.
Yeah.
The lobsters are going to come and bite you in the butt. Pinch you. Let's see. Yes, so we've talked a bit about learning. We definitely talked about taxes.
Yeah.
Man, but I think the title of this stream might be a little bit misleading. I was planning on talking a little more about rhetoric. And we only have 13 minutes left. But I suppose the elements of rhetoric were there. I mean, we talked a bit about convincing people of things, which is the point of rhetoric. And if we go and we look at what Aristotle says about convincing people of things.
Well, we also talked about rhetoric in our
rhetoric, reputation management.
pretty, yeah, like pretty extensively in one of our last streams about when we talked about like writing well, how, you know, impression management, all of those things. I'm sorry, I got distracted by a comment about the moth.
Oh boy.
This moth is causing chaos.
Yeah, learning. We didn't talk too much explicitly about that. So maybe we can end on that. A little bit about learning.
All right, let's see. Learning by association.
So if you keep on doing your tapping and then you say something important, the next time somebody hears tapping, they'll think about what you're saying, right? That's how it works?
Yeah. Yeah. So I just, you know, I take associative learning, you know, to the extreme.
Okay, so you show up.
So like every time I have something important to say, so what I do is, you know, so when you're doing something, when you want people to remember things, being you know, having some strong emotion or some sensory thing along with it, it helps a lot. Like, so, and you want something that people like. You want something if you have something that will like that will basically. You know, if you want something to spur a memory, you want it to happen a lot. Like, you want that memory to continuously be spurred. So anytime I have something really important to say, I just take a giant shit in my pants, and then basically whoever's like listening, like the room just starts smelling, right? And then like I'm saying, so they're like every time they're on the toilet, they're like, "Huh, oh, Steven said that once. It's interesting." Like. So, you know, it's just foolproof. It's brilliant.
Yeah,
know?
Do that when teaching a lecture, and then you can have a scratchy sniff
and then
on
they're
people's
like,
exams.
And yeah, before their exam
brown
on the
and sticky
toilet.
Scratch and sniff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you can just make you can do it yourself. You know, like just lay out a nice sheet of plastic wrap, and then like put it all God, this is getting gross. No, okay. No. So is it learning by association? So yeah. This person says, happy to say I did not see that coming. Yeah, I'm glad this is not a relatable technique for you, because then I can't make a patent on it and actually make money off it. I'd have to go back to the drawing board. No.
Back to the drawing board, huh?
Association, like, isn't like it's really for me like, and this is why like I can become pretty good at like kind of shutting my brain off. I feel like is because when I start like talking and thinking about things out loud with other people. I start getting reminded of other things, and then this reminds me of that, and this reminds me of that. And like my ex commented, she said, in the sort of description, she's like, well, it's sort of like everything reminds you of everything. That's what like that was the way she put it. And like it literally like I really like tying information to other information, and then and the way I remember, sort of like how. Like kind of like a web, right? Like this thing is connected to these other things, and then it helps me.
And you articulate it. You articulate it. Though. That's NE. You articulate it. NI does it, and it just stays up here.
Alice sounds oddly familiar. Yeah. Oh God! Someone popped in when I was talking about shitting my pants. This guy Slemon. I think I popped in at a good time. Yes, the best time. No, but
that's what the turd said when I went into your pants, right?
Yeah, this is the best time. Yeah,
I popped in at a really good time. To learn about all sorts of new things.
Yeah, and now people will remember me. Yeah, but
I was actually thinking. I was thinking along the same vein as what you were talking. I actually had a classmate that showed up high to class on a regular basis.
And they like if they weren't high, they probably.
Well, and then he said, "Okay, I'm showing up high because on exam day I'm also going to show up high."
He's a kid. He's the king of... That's hilarious. Sounds like the king of rationalization as well.
Uh-huh.
Someone who'd be really good at explaining.
Uh-huh.
But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but as like things like, but I can kind of get in this brain dead mode where especially as like an extrovert, if I'm away from people, I can sort of like, my tendency to sort of like ideate and postulate things like out loud can, like, I can get rid of that, since I'm not gonna, sometimes I'll just talk to myself, but not very often, and I can sort of shut that off, and then nothing's reminding me of anything, so I'm sort of just sitting there like my brain's just atrophying, kind of like, oh, okay, just doing nothing now, right?
I think that can also be
like,
called rest. Just
yeah,
taking a mental break.
I can rest, guys. Yeah, and
it's like, don't dare rest for too long. I'm gonna atrophy.
Don't rest too long.
I think that rest is okay, dude.
Yeah. No, but like, my brain doesn't like resting though at the same time, so I can kind of make myself by isolating myself from people, myself from people. God, it's getting to the funny part of the stream where I'm like, it's getting into the like the the what do you call it, the low signal to, you know, noise ratio.
Well, but I actually think that we are still having a signal.
Yeah, signal. No, I agree.
I mean, I don't even know that we're filling this with noise. At least from my perspective, I've been enjoying it.
It's just, yeah, well, exactly. The signal's just of a different kind.
Yeah,
it was pretty. Which is fine. There's nothing wrong against it. I won't say anything against it.
We were talking about learning though, and so we've established that
that I learned by
if you want to learn and to teach in a very memorable way, follow Steven's advice.
So, yeah, but not too much. Or if you do it often, at least you vary your diet up enough that like it is a different scent at times. So then you really like.
So, like, eventually if you're at the university and you have Tuesday, Thursday classes, then just make sure that on dinner on Monday and Wednesday, you have a particular food, and it's something different than what you have on dinner on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday.
Right.
And then just hope that it doesn't retroactively work in terms of you remembering stuff from previous classes that actually isn't relevant to what you're doing now.
Yes.
A well-balanced, varied diet.
Rest and work are both biblical commands, therefore they have the same rule. I guess that rule is death. That's what you're rolling for.
Yeah, we all die. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah.
It's almost, you could say the argument, you're either working or resting. I think that's in physics. I feel like that would be the argument. Physics, but
yeah. Well, my brother said, here's the, you know, the I don't even know. This is just a horrible comment. It's like at one point I think one of his friends went and bought a lottery ticket or something. Then he just came home with this stupid grin on his face. He said, "You know, Matthew, I think I'm gonna buy a lottery ticket." And he had this look with his, you know, fingers in the okay. I think I'm gonna buy a lottery ticket. You know, he was doing, I will buy a lottery ticket and make Mexico pay for it. No.
We're in the middle of the wall.
I am going to buy a lottery ticket. And I was like, why would you buy a lottery ticket, you stinking moron? You know, just because that's what good brothers say. Yeah. He said, no, look, all I have to do is get one with a really, really, really high prize. And you know that there's a 50% chance. It's 50-50 I'm going to win. What do you mean 50-50? Are you stupid? They know about expected value. They get you to buy these things. And obviously I knew he wasn't going to buy one, but I'm just like, what in the world is this argument? Well, I'm either going to win or I'm going to lose. 50-50, right? This is what this person said. It's 50-50 shot to win the lottery. Either you win or you lose.
Wait, did someone actually say so? So your brother was relaying the story to you then?
Yeah.
50-50. You win or you lose. And then,
No, my brain hurts.
That person really does believe. That's the type of person who really pushes for equality of outcome, huh? God. Yeah. And this is why equality of outcome is this way? No.
Buy 4 tickets, you have 200% chance of winning, Ale.
Yeah. You're gonna win twice, at least.
200% chance of winning. Because that's how it works.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's what 2 to 1 odds are, right?
Yeah.
Dude. Oh.
They said it was 2. Oh, my God. There you go.
Oh, the cancer. You only need 2 to win. 50 plus 50 is 100, but you win it twice.
I mean...
Yeah, Jacob and Ale have this all figured out.
Oh.
Oh, boy. So, on that lovely note, we have 2 minutes left. Any other crazy, stupid things that we can say here? Oh, 1 minute left. Anything else crazy or stupid we can say in the next minute, or we just sit here, stare awkwardly at the camera until I decide to shut it off?
Anything crazy or stupid? There's like many things I could say.
Well, how about something productive and nice then?
Oh, productive and nice. Okay.
Yeah, we can leave our viewers.
There
with
are less
nice.
things I could say.
Well,
Coming from my area of expertise, I'm now there are less things I can say. No. Well. So here we go. We talk about impression management and look at our impression learning, taxes, and rhetoric. Oh, I guess we did. Never mind. We ended up covering a bit of each. But what you got to do is look very official, and then we'll cover it in this kind of a very informal. And so you get people coming. They come. You actually keep them there, and then eventually, once you did teach them something, you can kind of start feeding them bullshit. Eventually, I think that's if anyone tuned in for the whole 3 hours, that's one thing they'd have a skill at now. After learning all about these things, is you can
yeah
message.
Well, anyhow.
Oh, I didn't see the message that was retracted. I'm gonna put the user in timeout. I can do that.
Don't do that.
Should I put Ale in timeout now?
Put Ale. Well, if you put Ale in timeout, we can just quit this. What's up with my A2A? Oh, Ale's gonna ask me about that. Well, you sent me a message, right? And I just. The stream is not the place to talk about that because I'm going to have to contextualize and then it'll go over at least 20 or 30 minutes. So anyhow, on that note, I'll let it to send me a message and I'll answer that question. And for everyone, will be here Eastern time tomorrow at 9 p.m. or my time, 4 a.m. on Tuesday. I'll be having my morning coffee, and we'll be talking about dealing with frustrating people, installment number 2.
We could have a lot of installments on that.
I don't know how long this series is going to go on for. It's going to have a minimum of 5 installments. So there is the overview, and then there will be 4 installments, and then after that, there's going to be all these different nuances of exactly how to deal with all these different frustrating kinds of people. So I don't know how long it'll take. Or I could just say maximum 5 episodes, but whatever.
Well, the ENTP result would just be push their buttons. That's what you do. Cathartic. It's like have you ever if you wanna understand ENTPs, essentially, have you ever seen a button? Have you ever seen a button and you just want to push? Like if you look at the iPhone and this beautiful design, it has this nicest center button that just fits so nicely, and I just want to press this button. When I see a control panel with I want to click, like pushing button. What do little kids? You give them toys.
If there's a big red button that says "Do not press,"
it's even better. And when you give little kids, toys, you give kids toys, they could just have buttons on it. It could be do nothing. The kids just like to push it. That's an ENTP. The little kid, that's just an ENTP. We see a button, we want to push it. It doesn't, no reason why. It's just something to do.
Yeah.
Just,
that sounds like fun.
Just satisfying. So yeah, that's the ENTP response
just a remote
to annoying
control.
people.
Just get a remote control.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, on that note,
and an ENTP, that is interesting. Another interesting analogy. But okay, yeah.
On that note, thank you guys for tuning in. This was incredibly fun, and thank you, Steven, for the conversation.
Yes.